Today we'll be exploring how you can elevate your game's combat mechanics by studying the brilliant design of Cuphead. From challenging boss battles to its tight controls and stunning visuals, there are a ton to learn from this indie gem. So let's dive right into it. One of the first aspects of Cuphead and how it stands out from all of the other games is art and animation. Cuphead has hand-drawn 1930s inspired visuals, which does not just give the game a unique nostalgic feel, but is the foundation to how the combat system works. And since Cuphead is cartoony, players should be expecting overly expressed animations. Why? Well, this is what we're familiar with as reference. Remember, we're referencing something from the 1920s, 1930s, as it wasn't until late 1920s, early 1930s, where cartoons would actually have a voice, character narration, which means it was common for the story to be expressed with what you can visually see and music. In addition, all of the animations were hand-drawn, unlike digital animation we have today. And since game development isn't black and white, when creating a game reliant on a combat system, many factors come into play. Let's take Cuphead for example. For this video, we want to focus on combat. What we're looking for is how Cuphead animations convey weight, depth, personality, anticipation, and impact or feedback, which I'm going to break up into 3 components in just a second. But let's first identify who Cuphead is. Cuphead is a confident, daredevil, fun, and loving character. He has a brother who has a cautious yet slightly adventurous personality. For this video though, let's just focus on Cuphead. So if you were developing Cuphead, what would make sense for Cuphead to do? Should we give him a grin? Should we make him a big character? Is he a strong character? Is he going to leap into danger? Is he quick on his feet? Does he save somebody? Is he greedy? So on and so forth. I don't want to spoil the game, so I'll leave it at that and let you guys fill in the blanks. And so the end result for what the developers chose to do was create Cuphead as you see here. He has that Mickey Mouse look to him, with the big boots, the big white gloves, along with red shorts, and no shirt. But from a 1930s perspective, he fits right in. And so now we have a theme and we've created a protagonist. How do we take this character and execute a combat system? So how do we execute a great combat system? Well, combat is broken up into 3 fundamental components. These are anticipation, impact, and response. And so how does Cuphead deliver? Well, for this study, let's focus on one component at a time. Starting off with anticipation, we want to inform the player of indicators that may anticipate what will happen next. This can be passive or active. At this frame, we can see Cuphead is picking up his pants, which plays into his character eager and ready for combat. Next, we identify that we're fighting a boss, as the boss is large and proceeds to taunt Cuphead. We can also anticipate a fight is about to happen, that the way the room or stage is set up. As for passive anticipation, if we look at these floating platforms, we can tell perhaps we will need to jump on them at one point. And on the bottom left here, we can see a health bar, well, HP 3, as the player can perhaps anticipate that they have 3 lives, or they can only get hit 3 times. In this case, you can only get hit 3 times. As the fight begins, you get some anticipation from Cuphead this time, where his finger is pointing up, anticipating an attack. Not much here, but now it's the boss's turn, and the boss changes animation and appears to be charging up an attack. Perhaps this is a great time to jump on one of the platforms, but another great example of anticipation. And if we take a look at the bottom left, we see more anticipation as now we see a card appearing. This is your special attack. Further in the game, you can use specials requiring more cards, but at this point in the game, 1 card results in a special. And right on cue here, the player performs a special, and for some anticipation, Cuphead's animation changes, charging and then releasing the attack. And now we have more anticipation, where the boss changes states as shooting seeds, which can hurt you and can only be destroyed with a melee attack. Another great thing to point out here is not everything should be boring and straightforward, as we may not have anticipated the seeds growing into an enemy upon hitting the ground. Alright, so let's play this in real time so you guys can see how quickly all of this happens. Alright, so we have another boss battle here. Let's chat about impact. Now, impact is when an attack lands. What visual feedback takes place? Not what's happening behind the scenes or after the attack, but what we can identify exactly once the player or the enemy gets impacted. Let's shift our attention to Cuphead's missiles or bombs here. Here we see impact when they land on the robot. We typically see a cloudy sprite and a orangey red explosion sprite. As for Cuphead, he is dodging everything in his path, so we aren't getting impacted. However, we see the boss changing states, taking out a magnet, and the boss pulls the player down into one of the screws. Upon impact, similar to the attack on the robot, Cuphead's impact results into two sprites layered on top of each other, followed by camera impact where the screen shakes briefly, Cuphead's sprite flashing, and our HP on the bottom left of the screen animating. And so many of you may be wondering, what about the combat response? Well, the final component here is most of which you don't see. And this is because Cuphead offers very little user interface during combat. But if we dissect combat response in Cuphead, we will notice a few things. For starters, bosses change states. And throughout the fight, this will be a response to how much impact we've given to the enemy. We can also see a response every time we attack an enemy and our special meter or cards go up, or when we get hit and our hit points go down. And another response when getting hit is Cuphead becomes invincible while he's flashing for a few seconds, indicating to the player that he cannot get hit again within this brief period. And there you have it, the 3 components to combat. Cuphead Edition. I'm sure I missed a few examples and we could easily spend all day drilling into the different bosses, but I figured Cuphead would be an interesting case study. We could also drill into the control layout and responsiveness to combat, but I'll save that for another time. In the meantime, what is your favorite boss or stage in Cuphead, and why? Let me know down in the comments below, and until next time.